All right, so a proper gentleman and the romance that derives from being a proper gentleman. And I'm personally a hopeless romantic. I think I've allowed myself to step into more of that lately in discovering myself and the man who I aspire to be, and in reading the virtue of selfishness and really coming up with the ethos, the principles, the morals, the values of what a proper gentleman would look like in reality. I've come across some very concrete, I can't say concrete, but I've come across some very objective reasons why our relationships have not worked in America, why most of our relationships are failing, and the things that we've learned in our relationships that have more led us to where we are now. And I'm going to start off with something that I read in this book, The Virtue of Selfishness, and it's in the chapter The Psychology of Pleasure. Now, for context, Ayn Rand says there are broadly 5 interconnected areas that allow man to experience the enjoyment of life: productive work, human relationships, recreation, art, and sex. Now, the previous video was kind of giving us an outline of what a proper gentleman looked like, what his goals were, what his aspirations were, the things he considered valuable, the things that he held to the highest regard, his principles, his morals, these objective ethics, rationality, and productivity, right? And if you haven't seen the video, go watch the video. It's on the YouTube channel and the podcast. You guys already know where to find that. So those things allow man to experience the enjoyment of life. Now, previously, and just again for context, productivity is a matter of rationally coming up with and executing our goals. Okay? Productive work is the most fundamental of these. Through his work, man gains his basic sense of control over existence, his sense of efficacy, which is the necessary foundation of the ability to enjoy any other value. The man whose life lacks direction or purpose, the man who has no creative goal, necessarily feels helpless and out of control. The man who feels helpless and out of control feels inadequate and unfit for existence. And the man who feels unfit for existence is incapable of enjoying it. All rational, right? All rational, makes complete sense. And we're going to fast forward to how that affects our romantic lives. And hear me out. Of the various pleasures that man can offer himself, the greatest is pride. Pride is the pleasure he takes in his own achievements and the creation of his own character. One more time. Pride is, and of the various pleasures that a man can offer himself, the greatest pleasure is pride. Pride is the pleasure he takes in his own achievements and the creation of his own character. Now, consequently, the pleasure he takes in the character and achievements of another human being, the pleasure he takes in the character and achievements of another human being is called admiration. The greatest pleasure he can experience is pride in his own achievements and the creation of his own character. That same is applied to another human as admiration in their character development and achievements. The highest expression of the most intense union of these two responses, pride and admiration. Remember, the highest expression, remember, this is pleasure, the highest expression of these two responses of pride and admiration is romantic love. Hear me out. Its celebration is sex. The highest expression of the most intense union of the greatest pleasure that a man can experience of pride in himself and admiration in another human being is romantic love. And the celebration of said romantic love is sex. Why have so many relationships failed? Why have so many relationships gone for a few years and then failed? Why does sex fall off? Why do we change so much? And it's because we enter into relationships unwhole, incomplete, without pride, without self-esteem. And yet we still find a way to convince ourselves that we admire another, or is it really because of what they do for us and our inadequacy, and lack thereof, of pride and our own character development and achievements? Now, we'll get to that in a second. As we continue, it is in this sphere above all, in a man's romantic sexual responses. And remember, this is about being a proper gentleman, because a proper gentleman values productive work over anything, because his achievements in said productive work is what give him the sense of pride, which is one of the greatest pleasures. And in pride, we develop our self-esteem, which is a part of our character development. And until we have those things, we can't properly admire the achievements and character development of another human being, ending in romantic love, in which we celebrate that union of pride and admiration through sex. I'm just excited about this because I've never looked at it this way, but it makes complete and total sense in my head, especially in my journey to become a proper gentleman, right? And anyway, I can get excited about this. So, it is in this sphere above all, in a man's romantic sexual responses, that his view of himself and of existence stands eloquently revealed. A man falls in love with and sexually desires the person who reflects his own deepest values. One more time, in case you didn't hear me. A man falls in love with. A man falls in love with and sexually desires the person who reflects his own deepest values. A proper gentleman, a man who is not living by Bushido, the way of the warrior, the 7 cardinal virtues, objectivist ethics, all of which I touched on in the very first episode. A proper gentleman is adamant about living his life by this code. The code being, and this is the Proper Gentleman's Club, these are the commandments. And I don't know if I went over these. If I didn't, here they are. Again, the term proper generally refers to something that is appropriate, correct, or suitable for a particular situation. It often implies adherence to social norms, etiquette, or standards of behavior. When applied to being a gentleman, proper encompasses several key qualities. 1, be respectful. And these are from those things: objectivist ethics, Bushido, the way of the warrior, and 7 cardinal virtues. Putting proper with gentlemen and discovering the definition of what those two would mean together, I came up with these. Number 1, be respectful. A proper gentleman treats everyone with respect, regardless of their status or background. This includes being polite, listening attentively, and valuing others' opinions. Be courteous. Good manners are a hallmark of a proper gentleman. This means saying please and thank you, holding doors open for others, and being considerate in social interactions. Be honest with yourself first, and then others. Integrity and honesty are crucial. A proper gentleman is truthful and transparent in his dealings, earning the trust of those around him. 4. Be considerate. Being aware of and responsive to the needs and feelings of others is essential. This includes small acts of kindness and showing empathy. Be well groomed. Personal appearance matters. A proper gentleman takes care of his grooming and dresses appropriately for different occasions. Be responsible. Taking responsibility for one's actions and being reliable are important traits. A proper gentleman can be counted on to fulfill his commitments. Be well spoken. A proper gentleman doesn't speak crass like a barbarian. He chooses his words wisely and succinctly, saying less, doing more. The well-spoken gentleman is a man versed in culture, familiar with the language of the world and his own country. The proper gentleman who embodies these proper gentleman commandments, which are taken from objectivist ethics, Bushido, the way of the warrior, and the 7 cardinal virtues. And man, again, and this is in relation to romantic love, because a proper gentleman is about productive work, rational thinking, and achieving said goals from the productiveness of his work. Pride is the pleasure he takes in his own achievements and the creation of his own character. Now, if you're living according to these commandments with these key qualities, a man falls in love with and sexually desires the person who reflects his own deepest values. Imagine the woman who reflects these values of a proper gentleman. Imagine the man who embodies these values. I think our divorce rate goes way down. Now, this doesn't obviously just affect men here. This is how women choose their partners as well. There are 2 crucial respects in which a man's romantic sexual responses are psychologically revealing: in his choice of partner and in the meaning to him of the sexual act. When we're younger, we're not even going to go there. That's a whole nother conversation, and I'm not trying to go over 20 minutes here. I'm just trying to keep it short. But these are 2 crucial respects in which a man's romantic sexual responses are psychologically revealing where he's at mentally, right? Where he's at mentally, his choices. His choice of partner and in the meaning of sex. His choice of partner reflects his deepest values, and sex is the celebration of the admiration of the person who reflects our deepest values. Think about this very deeply here. A man of self-esteem, a man in love with himself and with life, feels an intense need to find human beings he can admire, to find a spiritual equal whom he can love. The quality that will attract him most is self-esteem. Self-esteem and an unclouded sense of the value of existence. You can't value existence if you don't value yourself. And you're not going to value yourself if you're not being productive. And you can only be productive if you think the universe is open to your productiveness, meaning that you believe that your work is valuable. You won't do work if you don't believe it's valuable. But as a proper gentleman, as a rational man, you're going to consider those things that you believe to be valuable and execute them productively, giving you your sense of pride in your own achievements and your own character development, therefore attracting and being able to admire someone who also reflects those values. Giving yourself self-esteem. Now, we get into the good part, because the self-esteem part, that's what a lot of us use the sex and relationships for, to fulfill our lack of pride and self-esteem because of our lack of achievements, our lack of character development, because of our lack of productivity, due to the fact we don't have great values. To such a man, sex is an act of celebration. Its meaning is a tribute to himself and to the woman he has chosen, the ultimate form of experiencing concretely and in his own person the value and joy of being alive. The need for such an experience is inherent in man's nature, but if a man lacks the self-esteem to earn it, he attempts to fake it. And he chooses his partner subconsciously by the standard of her ability to help him fake it, to give him the illusion of a self-value he does not possess and of a happiness he does not feel. And I have to say that again. If a man lacks the self-esteem to earn it, that experience that is inherent to our existence of pleasure and the pride of our own achievements and our own character development, therefore being able to admire a person who also reflects the deep values of achievement and personal character development. If he lacks the self-esteem to earn that experience, he attempts to fake that experience by choosing a partner subconsciously by the standard of her ability to help him fake it, to give him the illusion of a self-value he does not possess and of a happiness he does not feel. Thus, if a man is attracted to a woman of intelligence, confidence, and strength, if he is attracted to a heroine, he reveals one kind of soul. If instead he is attracted to an irresponsible, helpless scatterbrain whose weakness enables him to feel masculine, he reveals another kind of soul. If he is attracted to a frightened slut whose lack of judgment, this is written in the 1960s, people, don't get mad at me. If he is attracted to a frightened slut whose lack of judgment and standard allows him to feel free of reproach, he reveals another kind of soul. The same principle, of course, applies to a woman's romantic sexual choices. The sexual act has a different meaning for the person. I'm going to say that again. The same principle, of course, applies to a woman's romantic sexual choices in an era where the woman is glorified right now and able to choose based on how she feels. She will, just as man does, choose based on her own lack of achievement and especially character development. For self-esteem purposes, choose someone who will help her fake it, just like the man. The sexual act has a different meaning for the person whose desire is fed by pride and admiration, to whom the pleasurable self-experience it affords is an end to itself, the celebration. And for the person who seeks in sex the proof of masculinity or femininity, or the amelioration of despair, or a defense against anxiety, or an escape from boredom. We have created a culture in which we seek out romantic relationships to appease and satisfy our lack of self-esteem and pride, and our lack of achieving anything, our lack of character development, our lack of being anything proper, especially a proper gentleman. And therefore, we are not able to admire our partners the way that we should, or for the right reasons. And for the wrong reasons of admiration, these relationships fall out, they fail, and we have a divorce rate of over 50%. In choosing our partner and their ability to help us fake our lack of achievement because of our lack of productivity, because of our lack of values and a good moral code. I believe that in becoming a proper gentleman, and by living by these qualities that we mentioned earlier, be respectful, be courteous, be honest with yourself first, then others, be considerate, be well-groomed, be responsible, be well-spoken. In a few words, by doing this, by living by this code, you will find, because we desperately want to surround ourselves with people who emanate our values, by doing this, you will find the person who reflects your deepest values, and in that you can admire and have sex as a celebration. That is a successful relationship. And that's where we'll end this episode.